Muggles. I got requested to do a video about my first ever job in Japan, and that's honestly a wild story in of itself. Before I do that, I want to mention a little bit about what I do now. I'm actually a private school teacher, and I do that for maybe 3 or 4 days a week depending on my schedule. I teach classes all by myself, and I make the curriculum, and I have to do things like order books and stuff like that. So I very much am a real English teacher. I only work that part-time, honestly, because working full-time in such a high-stress job really wasn't good for my health. So I do that part-time, and I also localize games and like proofread games, and also I do a lot of stuff on Instagram, and of course I do modeling stuff on the side. I like the balance of having a steady job and a steady salary that's not full-time, and also getting to do little things on the side that I enjoy. I really do love my job though, and I've been working at the same school for about 3, almost 4 years now, so I don't see myself changing that anytime soon. But I've come a long way since my first ever job in Japan. I actually graduated university. Before I even got my diploma, I was honestly just ready to leave. And I got the JET application. JET is, I think it's government funded, and it's probably when people think of being an English teacher in Japan, they think of being a JET. So I applied there, and they sent me the forms, and honestly, there were so many. It was a lot, and like I had to get loads of different forms, and I had to make copies of my passport and stuff like that, and I immediately thought, well, you know, like this is a lot. I think I need to obviously take some time to fill these out. And while I was taking that time, someone I knew who had also applied to JET and been successful, they found out that they were placed up north in Sendai in a very small rural village. And I honestly just wanted to be, it didn't have to be Tokyo, but I did want to be placed somewhere where I would have access to things that were relevant to my interests. And I didn't mind if it was like Tokyo, Osaka, or like even like Fukuoka or somewhere like that. I just didn't want to be placed in the middle of nowhere. So I had a little look online and see if there was other companies, and there are tons and tons of dispatch companies, and I just applied to lots of them. And the first one that replied me back, they offered me a job instantly. Like they said, we have a job for you, and you should leave and arrive here in 2 weeks time. That was honestly already suspicious, but I didn't really think anything of it. I was honestly just done with being in university and working the jobs I was working at that time, and I just honestly wanted to get out of my hometown. So I did a Skype interview with them, and yeah, I got accepted and I agreed. That was honestly my first mistake. I don't regret it because it honestly led to where I am now, for which I am extremely grateful, but I should have read a few more reviews about the company. I won't say which company it was because there are like some weird defamation laws in Japan about what you can and can't see about companies, but if anyone mouths me, I think I'll be able to tell you the company name. I had a look last night and it's still up and running, but honestly the reviews are so bad, and even up until now they're terrible, and they were terrible at the time that I started working, so honestly I should have looked. First of all, a warning sign is if they tell you to come over on a tourist visa, that's already kind of a red flag. And this is what my company told me to do, and I think firstly that's illegal. Second of all, if they decide suddenly they don't want to hire you and you don't get a visa, you're on a tourist visa, so obviously you just have to leave. And that I know has happened to quite a few people. They come over being told that they were going to get employed, and they paid money to have an apartment and everything like that, and the company said, oh, actually we found someone else, and then, you know, they've lost a big chunk of money and they just had to return to their hometown, and it's just like a waste of time for everyone involved. Another red flag was that they told me that they found my accommodation, which I was really grateful for, and they set me up in a actually really nice share house, but it was something like 5,000 yen per month, like 50,000 yen, which is quite a lot for a share house for just one room, and where I moved to was Koshigaya in Saitama, which is, you know, just outside of Tokyo, so it's not hard to commute in, but it's also like not an expensive place. So I'm pretty sure that I was paying way too much for that place, and I think a lot of these dispatch companies have deals with certain share houses if they can get people to live there. And another thing is they didn't mention anything about a moving in fee until later, and I'll get into that later. So anyways, I packed my stuff. I didn't have, you know, like I was leaving so suddenly, so I didn't have that much stuff. Honestly, I had like a suitcase. I had a little bit of money in savings that I made from my part-time job, and I just, you know, like got up and moved. And I stayed in a hotel the first week that I moved to Japan, and I went to a couple of their seminars, their training seminars. And the other unusual thing was that the seminar was in like Tochigi, Utsunomiya, and I had to take the Shinkansen there for like an hour and a half, which was really, really far. And it was weird for me because I've been to Tokyo before, but I'd never taken a Shinkansen and gone to like the middle of nowhere. So we went to the training seminar, and like as usual, I've been to so many of these training seminars and they never actually train you anything. They just went over the rules, like don't use your phone, don't listen to music at work, like very, very obvious things. And they said never ever correct any of the Japanese English teachers, never do this, never do that, and they fed us a bunch of horror stories. It's kind of like normal stuff. So I did that. At that time I made a bunch of friends who also were working in Koshigaya, which was really, really great because particularly one of them is a really, really good friend of mine even up until this day. So honestly, the group of teachers I met were honestly amazing, wonderful people, and that was one of the very, very lucky things, how I was very, very lucky. Everyone I met in Koshigaya was honestly really nice. So I went back and then I prepared to move into the share house, and they said, oh, by the way, you have to pay 100,000 yen to move in. And I didn't have 100,000 yen, honestly. I mean, I just didn't think they didn't mention about a moving in fee. It was honestly bad on my part. I should have honestly paid more money. But even so, I think this was quite underhanded of them. And so I told them I didn't have the money, and they said, well, if you can't move in, then you can just go back to England. And it cost so much money for the plane and everything. So I just had to borrow money from one of my friends, which I actually obviously paid back. But it was just annoying, awkward, and embarrassing situation, honestly. So I paid the money, I moved in. The share house is lovely. I was the only Western foreigner there. There was one guy who was from Taiwan. He was really nice, and everyone else was Japanese, and they were really, really nice too. I'll make a separate video about my share house one time because honestly we had some really crazy stories. So I moved in, and then I was about to start my first day at work. Before you have your first day as an English teacher, obviously they take you to the school and you have to introduce yourself to everyone. And when I went to the school for the first time, we drove by car. Usually you have like a handler kind of person, a Japanese person who will take you to your school, and she drove me there, and I went and met everyone. It was a middle school, a junior high school, so there were lots of English teachers, and I'll get into their characters later, but honestly most of the people at this school are really, really nice, save for a few people. And the Kocho sensei, the principal, he was really, really, really lovely, and I just got a very good vibe from the school. And then so my handler drove me home, and she was like, this is the bus you take tomorrow, just get off outside the school and go inside. And I said, sure, like what could go wrong? This is one of my most embarrassing moments to this day in Japan. So I had to take the train one stop I was at Kita Koshigaya, and I had to go to Koshigaya, and then I had to take the bus. But I got on the bus, as she said, and I went and I got off at the school and I went inside. and I was looking for my shoebox because when you start, you get a labeled shoebox where you put your shoes in, and I couldn't find my name, and I was standing there for ages like, where's my shoebox? I saw it yesterday, and a Japanese teacher came out and they said, like, can I help you? And I said, hi, I'm the new ALT, it's my first day, I'm just looking for my shoebox, I swear I saw it, it's not here. And they're like, you're not the ALT because ALT's here. I was like, what? And I looked and I saw a foreign name, and I noticed that was actually someone I met at the seminar. Like, so I was like, what? That's not the ALT, I'm the ALT. And the guy said, wait, are you looking for Higashi Koshigaya? This is Minami Koshigaya. I was like, what? Like, the schools look the same? It was my first time seeing a Japanese school, so I didn't know that they all kind of looked the same. And honestly, from the outside, it looked completely the same. So anyways, this was the PE teacher, and I swear he was like in stitches. Like, at that time I knew a little bit of Japanese, but not so much. But you know, you can tell when someone like is making fun of you, right? And he got the other PE teacher, and they're having such a laugh at this stupid foreigner who ended up in their school by accident. And they're like, don't worry, we'll drive you. It's like, I wouldn't usually get in a car with like a guy that I didn't know, but like I don't really have much choice. So I'm like, okay, so we get in this tiny car. The two PE teachers at the front, they are, oh my god, they're laughing, they're in stitches, and we're driving. And we're driving towards my school, and I see in the distance the Kojo sensei, the principal. He's like waving everyone inside, and he turns around and he sees this small car with the two PE teachers who he obviously knows because like the schools know each other, and he sees me sitting in the back, and oh my god, he was just like, oh. And I got out the car, the PE teachers are like, here's our ALT, It was really embarrassing, and oh my, I apologized so hard. I was like, I'm so sorry, that must have been so embarrassing. It's my first day at work and I already embarrassed the school, I'm so sorry. He thought, like, he wasn't mad, he was just like, oh my god. So that was my first day. I don't actually remember so much about my first day because it was so embarrassing, but the first day of that school, actually I didn't teach any classes. They just introduced me to the students, and I just did a little bit of a self-introduction. But yeah, there were four English teachers. There was this older woman, she was very, very nice. There was a younger woman who actually wasn't that nice. There was a younger man, he was okay, and there was an older man, and he wasn't very nice. And yes, I'll talk about those from now. So I started to get into my classes. As a new ALT, honestly, you're not gonna be really doing anything. Compared to what I do now, like I actually have to make lesson plans and execute them and teach and use like technology and make my own materials and stuff like that. But as an ALT, you're just kind of like a tape recorder at first. And that's all I really was, and I was just reading bits out of the textbook and making sure that the kids were doing their work properly, but also like conversing with them and getting interested in English. I don't think the ALTs are a waste of time because honestly I got so many kids to open up to me and like to try speaking English, and honestly giving them a purpose to speak English. So that was the first while of me getting into it. This school, honestly, schools really, really vary. Every single school has its own kind of like culture, and the students are different, the vibes different, the teachers are different. This school was honestly one of the best I've ever worked in. The students were really, really lovely. I don't think I've had a problem with any student in this school. So of course, as a young foreign girl or a guy, you're gonna be pretty popular amongst the students. The students really, really liked me. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of jokes. It was just nice. And because of that, the younger woman I noticed started to get kind of cold towards me, and she ended up just getting, I don't know, I just got like a weird vibe from her. And the students who really liked me kept telling me that she didn't like me, and that she was kind of like jealous, I guess, that the students like me more. And honestly, that's really unprofessional and honestly just pathetic. Like, I was only on a 6 months contract anyway, so I'm just there to, you know, get them excited about English. And it ended up her eventually saying, oh, you don't need to come to the class for the rest of the year, like, because we're just doing tests and honestly we don't need you. And that made me like really upset. And at that school, actually, there was like a council room for kids who were depressed or bullied, which is honestly great. And there was a counselor woman who lived in California, and she spoke English pretty well. And I used to go in there now and then and, you know, like talk with the kids there who were feeling sad or feeling like they wanted to talk to someone. And obviously I used to speak to her a lot, and I told her about my situation. And I think looking back that she was sleeping with the principal because they were very close, very close. And she ended up telling him, and he got really mad, and he told her, if you don't treat the ALT nicely, and if you can't, like, well, play nicely, and if you can't do your job, then you're gonna get a pay cut. And the next day when I come in, she was really, really nice to me. She was like, good morning, okay, let's do today's lessons. And after that, we didn't have any problems, and the lessons just went a lot smoother. And, okay, that was one. The older lady, she taught me a lot about being an English teacher. She was really nice, but also really humble. I didn't have any problem with her. The younger guy was kind of like dumb in some ways, and he wouldn't really take any of my advice. He said a lot of wrong English, and we're not really supposed to correct them, so I had kind of nudged him in the right direction, but he wouldn't listen. But overall, he was nice. The older guy, he was probably, I'd say like 65, and he was just grumpy, and he was always grumpy to the kids, and he kept telling me, he didn't tell me to not come to his class or anything like the other woman, but he did say that honestly he didn't need me there because he had to take recorder, this is a sentiment that's held by quite a few English teachers. I find in Japan it's just like it's not accurate. Like, obviously learning a language is nice to speak to people who are native in that language, and also just having me there made the class a little bit more fun. So that was those English teachers, but I mean, by the end of the 6 months, we were all pretty friendly to each other, and it was just a nice environment. There was also another teacher, I think she taught Japanese. She was called Hasegawa Sensei, and honestly, she was such a nice woman, and I wish that one day I can meet her again because she was just great. She was an older woman, I'd say she was in her 50s, and she ended up sitting next to me. Our desks were together, and even though I didn't really speak Japanese so well and she didn't speak English that well, we just talked all the time, and it really helped me with my Japanese. There was no awkwardness. She was just really nice. We used to giggle and gossip. We used to take the same bus actually, and that really helped me to take the correct bus because we used to get on at the same stop. And yeah, she was just honestly wonderful. And you know, through the difficult times or times when I didn't understand something, or maybe sometimes when I said the wrong thing and she corrected me, it was nice to be supported by someone, particularly when you're in an environment where you're clearly the odd one out, and it's just nice to know that someone is there to support you. So honestly, thank you, Hasegawa Sensei. I love you so much. Thank you so much. And I forgot to mention that, and maybe the closing portion of this video is the thing that was unusual about that school, and I think when you work in schools, it's like you have different kind of classes. I taught a class for disabled students, which was honestly great. They had like various disabilities, but they were so enthusiastic, and we always had such a good time. And I also taught a class in a hospital. So I would teach my regular classes from Monday to Friday, and after lunchtime on Friday, I used to walk up about 200 meters to the hospital, and I used to teach a class there. And that was for students who shouldn't be attending school but are just too sick to attend the regular school. And those classes are actually ones that I got to plan and execute myself, and that was the first time I had to make lesson plans, and was a very good practice for me. The students were very, very nice because they were grateful for the opportunity to be able to learn. It was a very small class. I think there was only like 3 or 4 students every time. We had like a Halloween party. We had loads of different things. I used to make loads of crafts for us. We used to listen to music. It was just a really light and happy environment. But I noticed that over the course of the 6 months, students would leave and other students would join. And I asked where the students went who left, and the woman who was working there, she wouldn't really tell me, so I kind of just assumed the worst, because I knew like some of them had you know, like, of course, like degenerative diseases and maybe, you know, like leukemia and stuff like that. And I just decided not to dwell on it and make the time that we had together as enjoyable as possible. So after that 1 year, the students had changed quite a bit, and it was nearing the end of my 6 months. I had such a wonderful time at this school. Honestly, it was such an amazing experience, and it's kind of like a lottery what school you get, but this one was honestly great. And I decided to say my goodbyes to everyone. I wrote all the teachers I was close to a letter, and yeah, it was my last lesson at the hospital, and I arrived and I was so shocked. All the students that I had taught during the year had come back to say goodbye to me, and I think in total there was like 20, and I was so relieved because I thought maybe some of them had like been too sick and had to go into hospital, like they weren't able to leave the hospital bed, or maybe even worse, that they had passed away. So it was just such a nice, it was just so relieving. And we had like a little goodbye party, and they gave me some flowers, and they gave me usually when you stop being an English teacher, they give you a plaque with everyone's pictures on. Oh, it's just so wonderful. So after that 6 months, another bad thing about my company is that they said that they lost the contract with Koshigaya, because the dispatch company has to buy the contract, or win the contract, and another company had won it over, so they weren't able to provide jobs in Koshigaya, so I'd have to move to somewhere else in Saitama. And I just thought, you know what, I spent most of my money on the train fare going backwards and forwards into Shibuya anyways. I'll just move to Central Tokyo. And I decided to just move out and, you know, like, find a different job. That went a number of ways, which is possibly a video for another time, but thank you so much for watching. And again, tell me your stories about your first jobs in Japan, and hopefully this is useful to you. Always research everything about the dispatch company, but again, at the end of the day, it really is a lottery about what school you get. I've had some good schools and I've had some bad schools, and I hope that if you're moving here, then you can get some good schools. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.